Verizon Communications stocks a steal and Verizon pays a monster yield. Verizon Communications garnered negative press coverage due to a scandalous news item about toxic lid cables. This is probably a temporary problem, and Verizon has plenty of cash to withstand the impact. Investors should think about buying Verizon Communications stock and reinvesting the dividends. Let's dive in. Verizon under $35. And income investors Goldmine in the telecom space. Welcome to Timely Investment Research. This year so far, financial traders have loved technology stocks but didn't like Verizon Communications stock very much. However, there's a value investing opportunity here. As we'll see, Verizon's dividend yield is hard to beat, and the company's shares are trading at a tempting price point. Verizon is a telecommunications giant that's helping to build out the world's 5G network infrastructure. I suspect that investors have abandoned Verizon in 2023 because they're rotating into hyper-growth tech stocks. When they rotate back into steady Eddie stocks, Verizon's market capitalization could expand quickly. However, there's a negative news item that has recently caused consternation in the telecom sector. So let's dive headfirst into that topic now. Why some investors are worried about Verizon stock. In July, the Wall Street Journal published an article suggesting that AT&T, Verizon, and other telecom giants have left behind a sprawling network of cables covered in toxic lead that stretches across the U.S. Surely, it's not a mere coincidence that Verizon stock dropped from $37 to $31 and changed soon after the Wall Street Journal story was released. In the heat of the moment, it's tempting to think that a scandalous news item will absolutely ruin a company. But then, consider the time in 2010 when a BP drilling rig spilled vast quantities of oil into the Gulf of Mexico. That was much more notorious than the Verizon toxic lead news scandal, which, to be perfectly honest, most people probably haven't even heard about. BP is still around and making plenty of money 13 years after the oil spill. If this news item has caused Verizon's valuation to shrink, that's really just an opportunity for enterprising investors. It's not every day that you'll come across a gigantic company like Verizon with a trailing 12-month price-to-earnings ratio as low as 6.69x. Is Verizon's massive dividend safe? Citi analyst Michael Rollins is well aware of the lead contamination story, but he upgraded Verizon stock from neutral to buy. He also raised his price target on the stock from $39 to $40. Evidently, Rollins isn't too worried about Verizon and AT&T cutting their dividends. Better forward free cash flow should help reduce net debt leverage and support dividend payouts, he assured. Concerning Verizon in particular, I never suspected that the company's capital position was in jeopardy this year. Verizon ended the first half of 2023 with free cash flow of $8 billion. This marks a notable improvement compared to $7.2 billion in free cash flow a year earlier. Verizon has a sound track record of quarterly earnings per share beats. Income-focused investors should also be glad to hear that Verizon is celebrating its 17th consecutive year of dividend increases. All of this leads me to believe that Verizon's 7.72% forward annual dividend yield is fairly safe. Verizon stock is an excellent cash cow stock for recession-resilient dividends. Verizon stock, hold shares, reinvest dividends. The toxic lid cable news story is quite unfortunate. However, Verizon is in a solid enough capital position to withstand it. Just remember, one scandal wasn't enough to sink BP. Similarly, a single news item won't spell the end of Verizon. Now, Verizon's valuation is quite reasonable and the company's dividend payouts are probably safe. I consider Verizon stock under $35 to be a major bargain. For serious income investors, consider holding Verizon shares and reinvesting the dividends at every opportunity. Thanks for spending some time with us today, Timely Investment Research. We're so glad you did. If you found value in today's video, please give us a like, hit that bell icon to never miss an upload, and hey, don't forget to subscribe.